Hola, hola, hola. We're back again. This is We're Brothers, two brothers living on two different continents. This is episode 2. I'm David Jacobs.
And I'm Sean Jacobs.
I'm based in Cape Town, South Africa, and Sean is in the US. We're 10 years apart in age, and the last time we lived in the same city was 24 years ago.
So those are the basics. I'm going to stress a little bit more energy.
Yeah.
Brothers living on opposite sides of the globe. As we said in the first episode, distance is part of what the show is about. We're on YouTube and Spotify. We will add more social media platforms as we go along.
Look, we're committed to releasing one episode every other week, every fortnight. Follow us on social media, comment, like, and subscribe. I think I'm starting first. We just want to talk about some of the reactions to our first episode. It was quite funny. That one was in the beginning, which you can watch on YouTube and listen to on Spotify, Facebook, and iTunes and other platforms coming soon. So that we got some. Let's talk about the reaction. Yeah. So that show got some strong opinions, especially from the DMs. Some people want Sean and myself to fight. Some predict that it was going to be heated. That was good. Someone wrote that they want to mood him, for lack of a better word. Some said we both have strong personalities. I guess we grew up in a family of 7, 8 if you count my oldest brother, who lived with his mother when we grew up, and we have 5 sisters. So yeah, that's a bit hectic where we come from. So you got to be strong when you speak. One other comment was Yara bat your buta parat baya, and another added your bro has a lot of thoughts inside him. My big sis is the same, and I guess every family, if you're honest, has the one, either the eldest one or somebody that's trying to come up that has a lot to say, and they don't normally allow other people the space and the freedom to say a lot of stuff. But I just think it's verbal diarrhea at some stage. So yeah.
Oh, that's crazy! That's crazy.
I had to get my quote back. So let's see why Sean dominated. I guess.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's more like, I mean, David knows I've done some of this stuff for much longer than he has. I don't know why I'm sounding serious, but like I'm a professor, I lecture, teach in university. I've been doing this since like 2005. I also before this, I used to run a website called, I'm just the founder of that website now, called Africa as a Country, in which we had a podcast for like a whole year, like something like 40 episodes weekly. So to be like sort of aggressive and want to hear yourself, that's sort of just part of my personality. Some people, if you're really old, you may have seen me occasionally on South African television. So you kind of like, okay, it's that guy with that like many opinions. And just beyond that, I have a lot of opinions. You can ask David. I do have a lot of opinions. I'm very opinionated. I have a lot to say. In fact, one thing we'll talk later about, a little bit about ourselves, but my mother used to say that I asked too many questions, and that's not, she didn't say it was a bad characteristic of who I was, but she's just like, you're strange, you're weird, you ask too many questions. Just like do the thing, just don't ask too many questions.
So you were the why kid. Why?
Why are we doing this? Why are we going here?
It must have been fun for the 10 years I wasn't there.
Well, that's the other thing. You missed so much of that, because by the time you come around, I was kind of ready to, I think 10 years into it, I was already in university. So it's I think you missed some of that attitude. And we see each other like once twice a year, very intentively, and we'll talk about that too. But then maybe I try to not be so dominant, or maybe I am. But I think it comes from there. Anyway, you wanted to. There was one other thing that people ask us about.
What?
That asking us whether we wanted to have guests. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Look, that will come at a later stage. I feel like we should first let people get to know us as a duo, And then when the time is right, we'll get some guests on. There's some exceptional people we want to chat to. There's people within our vicinity that we can chat to, people within all spheres of industry. So, arts and culture and music. So, yeah, definitely we'll
Or
get
just
some
the
guests
people
on.
we know, or just our friends. We're
Yeah,
all
that's what I'm talking about. And
Yeah,
they do good things, and they do wonderful things, and we want to expose it and make sure we create a platform for them as well. So, yeah, that will be amazing, man.
So yeah,
So
for that.
definitely guests in the future.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
so
there was another thing that people were mad about on that first show.
there's such a lot that went on.
But the one they asked, I think you thought you were going to bring up me being a hater of Cape Town.
Oh yeah, I think from my side, I think you can explain yourself better. I don't think you are a hater of Cape Town, but sometimes you do come across like that for the people that've been DMing me and telling me things. So I guess I'll leave it up to you to explain yourself, and maybe they will understand a bit better.
Okay, so let me again. I don't want to take. Now it's becoming David's asking. I've got questions for David in a minute, but we just want to get these questions about me out of the way, so people are not like, "Oh, I praat alweer te veel." So let me quickly just respond on this question of me being a hater. So like David, I grew up in Cape Town, grew up on the flats. We grew up in Ottery, right? We very working class, but I had the opportunities. I went to the University of Cape Town. I lived in the city. I worked as a journalist. I worked at political institutes. And then I came to the US. So I've lived in the US for a long time. I think what happens when you view your city, I've also gone to other parts of South Africa. And I haven't necessarily lived there, but I've been there for extended stays. And I have then, as a result, like you can compare like that whole thing, oh, we've got the greatest city and all that. It's when you leave the city, I think you have like a much more maybe nuanced opinion of that city. And so one of the things, for example, I like this comment by Abdullah Ibrahim where he says, let's say ons speel Guma in die Kaap, hulle kan nie vir ons klaarmaak nie. And then he said, everybody plays Guma. And I sometimes feel like that's my thing with Cape Town. It's like there's like things that everybody does, but sometimes people can't imagine that somebody else is doing it except that they're doing it. And it's a beautiful city. Nothing gets me to come back into that city when the plane comes in or when you drive back. We went on a trip about 2 Christmases ago. We went on a trip in South Africa, and before Christmas, and we drove down to the Parow. And as we come back into the city, I mean, it's an incredibly beautiful city. It's got brilliant culture, wonderful people. So I'm not dissing that. I just want the city to work better for the majority of the people who live there. I don't think it is. I think if you're middle class in South Africa, and that's now increasing, particularly in Cape Town, it's a mix, kind of middle class, white and black. But they're enjoying like what's great about that city. But the bulk of the people who are not white, who live on the Cape Flats, who live in the townships, I don't think, the mountains there, they can see it, but many of those things that it presents to them, they cannot touch. There was one other thing, David, that was a leftover from the last episode. I had asked you.
I'm laughing
We
already.
were saying where we're from. We're talking about where we're from, like where we live. Sorry, where we live. I live in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. You live in Goodwood. And I asked you to name a list of prominent people or historical figures from Goodwood. And you claimed Eben Etzebeth. We fact-checked. Eben Etzebeth, I think, is actually from Parow. I think he went to what's called Tygerberg. Where's that? Is that in Belleville?
Tygerberg, that side, Parow, Belleville.
And Parow is one suburb over from Goodwood. It's not Goodwood. So we have to be clear about that. So I just wanted to, I found a bunch of people, but I want to hear from David first.
My exact statement was, he's close, but we will claim him for Goodwood. Because the problem is, unfortunately, I've done some research. I've had some other people involved, and I said, do you know anybody famous from Goodwood? And even they couldn't give me someone super famous. But I guess there's a few people that come from here that is not documented. But still, I'm going to ask in the comments if anybody can tell me. I'll really appreciate it. But for the research that I did, unfortunately, I couldn't find anybody. So yeah, I think it's still coming. Somebody famous is still either being born, or it's already like a kid in Goodwood, and hopefully in the future you will have some amazing things that he or she will be doing. So we're just waiting for that time, and then I can get back to you. Hopefully,
Well,
while you
for
so long.
I have a couple. I asked around, and I did some research myself.
Okay.
And I found like a story from 2019. I think I saw it on IOL, and also this blog called Two Oceans Vibe, which I'm not sure if that blog still exists. But they did a story about a surfer guy from Goodwood, a man called Sordig Parker, and they said that he looked like Aquaman. I mean, I will want to recommend it. He looks like Aquaman. Aquaman, Jason Momoa.
Yeah, Jason Momoa, yeah.
Is he from like New Zealand or something, like big actor? And the guy says that he has one benefit. He gets a lot of IG requests on.
Okay, rewind.
Let me tell you what it is. He said I get that
because he gets IG DMs and bro.
No, let me fix it.
Okay.
He said, let me fix this. Firstly, let me say what the IG requests. He said the IG requests are mostly from single moms, but let's leave that part.
Lovely.
The point is, he does. I mean, that's what I'm telling people. If you Google, you can go look and see what the guy looks like. That he does look a bit like. I think we have a picture somewhere in our files here. Maybe I can find it and just show you quickly. Hold up.
Yeah.
I think we have it in here. Wait, it's in.
I was more expecting, and I'm saying this with love. I'm not hating. I was more expecting you're gonna tell me like some famous football star or whatever. Oh, I see this guy. Yeah, he does have some resemblance to Jason Momoa. I give it to him. But if that is your...
I say that's aunties, but like, I'll show you one more. That's
good for him.
He looks like Jason Momoa. Come on, you got to give the guy his due.
I'm not denying that. I'm questioning the fact that is the standard of someone being famous. The fact that you're a double ganger for Jason Momoa, and somehow single mothers hitting you up on IG is making you one of Goodwood's. That is really
okay. I have two better ones. I have two better ones, but let me give the other one. The other one, and this is not really a joke so much.
But that first one, I'm gonna tell you that first one already. That throws me off. There, I'm gonna give you a crush. I'm happy with that. Let's see your other two options.
Okay, so Sordig Park is the one. Shout out to Sordig. Well done.
Shout out, bro. No hating.
Number two, my friend Lester Kiewit, I Googled and I saw he's on. People know him. He used to be on ENCA.
Nice.
And he was on. He has a good show on 567, which I can recommend. The local radio station in Cape Town. We can debate and discuss the media later. But Lester, very good on 567.
I agree with you.
He interviewed the famous cook sister man of Goodwood. I want to make clear, not cook sisters. That stuff that's the rounded stuff that's more sort of associated with Afrikaner culture. In any case, the man is called Arno Arpen, and you can again Google this. This guy, apparently he sells cook sisters on the streets of like Goodwood, and apparently it's the best cook sisters in the area, to the point that Lester gave him like a couple of good minutes shout outs on his show. Now I want to mention two others because I know we got to move on. There were two other people that because I think people don't think of those people. The one is a woman called Hetty McLeod. Hetty McLeod is more known to people as Hetty September. Hetty September was a trade unionist and an activist in the 1940s, 1950s. She was born in 1922. She's from Goodwood. And if you ever heard the name Red September, if you like in the left in Cape Town, people call him Uncle Reg. He died a couple of years ago. But Hetty McLeod, well, people would say Hetty Nee McLeod September, was married to him, but in her own right. She was a trade unionist. You can Google her. She was a member of the Communist Party and the so-called South African Colored People's Organization. So in the 1950s, there was the ANC, Communist Party, the Natal Indian Congress, and the Colored People's Congress, and she was a member of that organization. So that's the one person. Before you answer, David, I'll be quick. The other one is a man called Fred Carneson, who was a white guy also from Goodwood. And he served in the war. He was born, I think, 1920. So she lived from 1922 till 1997. He lived from 1920 till 2002. And this guy, if you sort of into the history of Cape Town, you'll have heard of him. He had served in the Second World War. He had joined something called the Springbok Legion, which was basically former, mostly white servicemen because at that time, Afrikaner politics or white politics was veering towards the Nazis. And the Legion wanted to oppose that influence by ex-servicemen. And this guy, he then became a communist. He also served, when they started taking away black and colored people's vote, the only vote that they had left, before that, he would represent them in Parliament, in Cape Town, in the Cape Town City Council. And the last part about him is anybody who's like, if we have those kind of listeners, like somebody who's like about 60 and older, they would know Fred, Uncle Fred. Again, major figure, resistance politics in Cape Town. I would recommend that people Google them. Yeah. So Goodwood is there. Goodwood is there.
Yeah, but then I have to throw a spanner in the works there. So if we do talk about famous people, that's not really likely that you're going to bring up politics for and clash that in with fame. Although I understand what you mean, but I doubt that a lot of people would have known anything about trade unionists back then. But it's a nice piece of history, and yeah, it's amazing that you can tell us these stories and get a bit more in depth. I think your source is a bit more better than mine. So yeah, we give it up to you for going in depth. We appreciate that, but I think we're going over and just discussing a bit of some of the history of our family and where our parents come from. And I think the focus this week is going to be just about, I think, our mom and where she was born. But I'm going to allow you to go a bit more in depth with that, Sean. From my side, I'm just going to give you like just some of my feelings on who my mom was as a person and a woman, and as a parent. My mom was, I think, the most loveliest person that you could ever meet. I think one story is if I ever bring people over to my house, the first comment would be, I've got the nicest mom in the world. She makes me feel welcome. She's very caring. I wasn't even sitting 2 minutes and she offered me something. So yeah, I think she's the most beautiful woman in the world. And I don't know how she handled having 7 kids, 5 daughters and 2 brothers, 2 sons, sorry, the 2 brothers. So yeah, I think she was an exceptional woman in her own right. And yeah, I must just add, I know a lot of people feel the same about their parents, that they were the best cooks and the best bakers. But my mom was exceptional when it comes to food. I think she still made the best food that I've ever had in my life. And baking, she was exceptional, not just because she allowed me to get in touch with the batter, what's left of the batter, that I could just lick everything up and I could have the rest of it. But she made a mean milk tart that my friends are still talking about today, and still reminding me. But I'll let Sean get a bit more in depth about where she came from and her family history and everything else. So yeah, Sean.
So again, I like how David got all the best lines off first. He's like, my mom, I love her.
She's the best, bro. I can't. I wish I could say anything. I think I got a hiding once that I can remember, but I said a really bad word. And I said it to this guy in the road. His name was Lionel.
Wait, I don't know. Was I gone by then?
You were gone by then, and I was shouting this word from.
Just so people who don't know, we grew up on Keith Road in Otley,
and I shouted a very bad word.
Somebody scheme, but we lived in the kind of semi-detached row houses. We lived in the row houses.
Shout out to Keith Road, Otley. Number 10 on the corner. And I was shouting at this guy and I was saying
something behind the house.
Yeah. And I was saying something about his mom, not knowing what the word meant because I heard it at school. And I was shouting and shouting. And I got a smack from behind. And my mother, until that point, I don't think I could ever remember my mom giving me a hiding. And I turned around and I asked, what is that for? And she told me, you're saying bad words. And she made me go over and apologize to this kid. And his mom, who didn't even hear me say the word.
And where were these people? Like what street are they on? What road?
Keith Road.
But where? Like what side?
Keith Road. They were on our opposite neighbors on the left hand side. But yeah, I said the bad word.
Wait, hold on. This is confusing. What side? I'm confused. Where? Like the side, the what do you call this? Was Weingart or the other direction?
No, on the other side, on the left-hand side, they were Japan's grandkids.
Japan. Yo,
Yeah.
this show, I don't know.
We'll do a show of nicknames.
People watching this are going to be like, yo, people are calling people Japan out here. This is just a guy with a bald head. I think because he had a bald head is a pun, like a pun. So
Yeah.
I think that's where the Japan. I don't think this dude had any connection to Japan. He had probably never been there. It's just he had a pun cop. You know, this kind of like. But just to, I'm asking because I don't remember this kid. David might be making up this story.
You won't remember because they were my age. They were my age and we were playing together. Like, I won't remember, obviously, the guys that you went to school with. I mean, on our family group, we discussed these things.
Wait, this is Japan's grandkid?
And I wouldn't even know. Say again?
Is this Japan's grandkid?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Anyway, David got the best lines, and he's like, "Oh, my mom, the best cook in the world." And I mean, I will say this at least, and I want to say something about where our mom was from because I think that's the point we're trying to convey, and I hope David can also fill in some of this. But also, I don't know about David. I was very much a mama's boy, like a bit of like I was very close to my mother, so that's kind of like it's I get what David says about our mother. I totally agree with, and there's some other stuff when we talk about growing up that we'll get into because I also happen to. Because I was older than him by 10 years, when I was a little kid, like you want to, with your son especially, you don't often want your son to be in the neighborhood, like be idle during school holidays, because, you know, a lot is happening. So my mother also took me along with her. She worked as a domestic worker, like people used to call that a char. A char meant that she didn't have a fixed employer, but she had multiple people that she worked for in different houses. And so I often went with her to some of these houses. So I kind of know it, you know, that's more like some older, I had that experience and I could see her in action. But so as to where she's from, like David said, like, we'll say, we want to just, for this part of the show or for this episode, we'll say a little bit more about our mom's family, who they are, like that part of who we are. So our mother is from like in an area between Calitzdorp and Oudtshoorn, in what in Afrikaans you call the Klein Karoo. In English translates basically to like small Karoo, kind of desert-like, very arid. There's mostly like tobacco farming, some cattle farming. And to get to this part where she grew up, you had to like leave the national road. I don't know what that one is called. Is that the N2? Was the N1? I think it's the N1.
Yeah.
It's no, it's not the N1 because the N1 I think takes you through Beaufort. At some point you turn off and you go towards Oudtshoorn, Riversdale and all that. So you have to turn off, go on a road that is not paved, and then you get into these like sort of like farming district where they grew up. She was one of like 12 children. I think she had one of the siblings died when he was a baby. I mean, the story everybody always tells he was bit by a scorpion, scorpioen. And then the other 11 survived. Most of them, so the parents were farm workers living on the farm, working. Their father was farming. Their mom was some farming, but mostly like doing domestic labor, taking care of the children. So you can imagine like raising 12 kids. We actually have an image of kind of the sort of right where they lived. Like this is the house where my mother kind of, where she grew up. I mean, so 12 kids in this 11 kids, sorry, in this very small cottage. When they're in their teens, they would start moving either to neighboring Oudtshoorn to go live and work there, or with many of the sisters, they moved to Cape Town where they did domestic work. Our mother did the same when she was about 17. My mother actually, she wasn't about that world. She wasn't very romantic. You know, she didn't romanticize it. Of course, she understood that she was loved and that her parents cared for her and that she had a great relationship with her sisters. In fact, when I was an adult, I would often go with her to these places and meet them and so on. But it was very harsh. Like the farmers were always quite racist, underpaid people. So what you did when you kind of came of age, you left. And she went to the city and she came to live in Cape Town and did, various works as a domestic worker. And just to sort of, by introduction to this kind of, because I think there's more we could say about this. she clearly she wasn't like, I think it's not like she didn't understand like where she was from. She had a clear understanding of that. She understood that like it was a harsh life. And the thing I was going to add is like she was actually also a migrant. A lot of the way that people in Cape Town talk about colored people, it's like, oh, we Cape Town belongs to the coloreds and nobody else. But a lot of the people who come to who are in Cape Town, they are also the descendants of migrants. So they go on about people from the Eastern Cape coming to Cape Town. Well, our mother's from Karoo. She's not from Cape Town. So there's no claim that she has on Cape Town. So I don't want to, I know people like, he's always going to bring in politics, but I think I want to just say that quickly. So and I want to say this because I know David will say something about this. When we were kids, I don't know if it happened with David so much, but when I was a kid, you would go to this farming district, and at Easter, at Christmas, and like all the cousins would be there, and you would have like this incredible time with our grandmother, with our grandfather, and just kind of be there. And so as a child, you're not aware of how violent, how racist, whatever that area is. You're just kind of basking in the warmth of your family members. Yeah. I don't know if you want to add anything, Dave.
Yeah, look at the stage when we went in smaller pods, so we weren't as big a family as you guys were, with everybody being there at one time. So some people would go during the year, some would go at the end of the year. And amazingly enough, we would have all the fun in the world. There was rivers to swim in, there was ostriches to chase, there was eggs to steal. So it was crazy, but it was wonderful living on the farm. There was a rooster brood and moer coffee. So it was new things that we weren't exposed to in Cape Town per se. But it was nice because it brought you closer to where your mother grew up, and you kind of had a sense of how it was for them to live in that on the farm. Because even though we went late 90s, early 2000s, there was still no electricity. I doubt if there's electricity on the farm now. So people are still living the same way they did hundreds of years ago. I wasn't fortunate enough to meet my grandfather on my mother's side, but I met I got to know my grandmother. But so it was amazing seeing the house and also living with other aunts and uncles in the area. The joke is that if you live in Kruisrivier, it takes you almost 2 hours to get to the nearest neighbor in some spaces. So yeah, it was crazy. It's a hell of a walk. So you're quite fit when you come back. You don't really realize it. But yeah, Sean, I just want to mention like what you said now about the whole migrant thing. I think you can actually call Mama an internal immigrant coming from Oudtshoorn and then moving to Cape Town and then coming here to look for better opportunities. So yeah, there's a lot of people that do that. So I don't throw shade on anybody looking for opportunities. That's just how life is. And if you can find something better, that's what you go for. I think Sean is showing a picture now of my mom with her sister Aunt Mona. I think this was this taken on the farm, Sean?
Sorry, this was taken in Oudtshoorn itself. So this was about 2006. So I'll say something about that later. I'm married to an American. I live in the US now. I don't know why my accent slightly changed there, but we went on like our little daughter was then born, like maybe she was like 2 or 3 years old, and this was her first trip. This was her first trip to the rural areas. We're taking her there, to go meet the family and kind of like see who people were. And that's when we went to the town, and our aunt, this woman, Mona. I don't think I don't know if that's her actual name. I think I'm just kind of, that's how we remember her, right? Like Auntie Mona. She lived there. Yeah.
I think it's the same with nicknames. Your aunts and uncles also got shorter versions of their names. So instead of Daniel, we called our uncle Uncle Dani. I think the photo that's up now is a photo of our grandmother.
Rosina, I'll say her name, Rosina Windvogel. Rosina Windvogelstein, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was wonderful times, and appreciated the time that we could spend with our family. And Oudtshoorn was always amazing. But talking about family and Oudtshoorn and having good times, we also have to talk about the bad times. And for this, I'm going to switch over to a topic that a lot of people has messaged me about and asked about, knowing that Sean has a background in political science and he does stay in the US. My question, and I think a lot of people's question is, because we see mainstream media, we see the reporting, and unfortunately, I'm one of those people that feel like sometimes mainstream media can be biased to whoever either owns them or has influence over them. So knowing that you don't get paid by anybody and you've got your own, you're a free thinker. What do you think is happening in the US right now, and what is it like living under Trump for a second term?
So I think it's useful to say this is sort of unprecedented in the US. So there's something about it that's like different, but it's also kind of the same. So yesterday, my wife and I actually were going on about this. Jessica, for David's sake, he knows her. Of course he does. We were talking about how, if you look, for example, at the amount of people that were arrested during Trump's first term, and you compare them to the people arrested during Biden's term by ICE. This is the unit of the Immigration Service that rounds people up and then, kind of puts them on a plane in shackles and deports them back, mostly to South America. And what you actually will see is that during Biden's term, sometimes people were deported at the same numbers in the hundreds of thousands, and sometimes Biden was more. Now, what is different though this time around is with Trump, it feels like it's gonna this time. That time Trump was constrained. It was his first term. He wasn't really used to like governing. He was new to the job. He may have had like a million crazy ideas, but he couldn't pull them off because the systems. And then the second part of it is like the courts, the police, like they were still having a tradition in which you don't politicize the system. You don't use the system to go after people because you're trying to, it's your political opponent. You'll lie and, do all kinds of terrible things if it involves people from other places, like where America's involved in wars in the 20th century, whether it was in Vietnam or whether it was in the Gulf and so on. So all Americans like unite in whether or not what kind of lies they're telling. But in this case, for the internal American system, I think there was a sense like you still play by the rules. And so what is different now is he's way more committed. He's way more, it feels like he's way more like, oh, okay, I'm going to try a bunch of stuff and a bunch of crazy things. And he's also surrounded by people who seem to be unqualified, but are ideological. And by this, I mean they're sort of ideologically driven. In other words, it doesn't sound like they care about the common good. When you're in government, yes, you may have an idea about how you want to change the country. Like what is your policy? What is your ideological framework? Like we believe that business should drive change, or we believe that the government should drive change. But we still try to operate within the rules. We try to compromise. We try to work with those people who disagree with us. The sense you have of the people who are with Trump now is that they don't give a damn. He fired civil service, like people who work for the government who are just doing their job. He fired tons of people. I have, I have friends who work in the U.S. government who told me how they saw like their supervisor was now gone, and you find all these guys from the Department of Defense coming into work in these various different government departments. And just one other point about it is, it's very different when you live in a place like New York City, which is a sort of melting pot, which leans historically Democrat or more progressive. People are aware that there's diversity. Then I think if you're living in another part of the U.S., which is more homogeneously white, I think parts of the Midwest, the South, and you can, and the other part is also like public discourse. You sort of jokingly said, "Oh, you're not being paid by anybody." Of course, I have a job, but I'm not in mainstream media. The other part is like how how people understand what's happening to them. It feels like if there were standards about what are facts, they don't exist anymore. Trump, who has a relationship with Elon Musk, who owns Twitter, and who just spouts all kinds of like nonsense, offensive things, racism, like every day. Facebook, which used to be, which is, I know where older people hang out. The youngins are all on like TikTok and IG, and the old people are on Facebook. Facebook used to have rules about fact checking. Facebook announced, I think either right before or after Christmas, that they were taking away fact checking, like no more facts. People can just post random racist, offensive things. So the context in which people get information has also changed. And so when you say like, what is it like to be here? It's this sort of, I mean, I can't even say, it's like crazy. It's like a kind of a crazy stress. Like if you read
dystopian world.
It's dystopian. Like if you read the news, it's like if you spend too much time like reading the news, like, you know, every story, you can feel the stress building up in you because it looks really ridiculous. And somehow he gets to pull it off. And my last quick point is he pushes for things that sound some specific and some so general that when it gets checked against the rules, they can throw it out. So there's been things that he tried, like stopping money to like the federal government, kind of like our central government in South Africa. It disperses money to states who then, you know, school lunches, healthcare, food stamps and so on. So they stopped that, but then a bunch of judges have now said, no, that's unconstitutional. You can't do that. They send people back in shackles to Brazil. They tried to do the same to Colombia. Colombia said, okay, then we're going to put tariffs. You're going to pay more for the coffee that comes from Colombia. So he said, okay, I'm not going to put them in shackles. So people are pushing back at some level, but it is quite, I think there's a way in which it's very stressful. Maybe that's my, I mean, how do you experience it from South Africa?
Look, I went to a friend's place in the week, and without even mentioning Trump, there was a conversation about America pulling out of the WHO because they were supposed to have a seminar in one of the hotels in Cape Town, and one of the guys I know, he was supposed to be in charge of the media and sound and all those things. So unfortunately, they had to cancel. I think the hotel is now, I'm not mentioning any names, but the hotel is now out of money. I think they need to recoup 50% cancellation fee. And now the guy I know, I don't know if he's going to get paid. So it's quite sickening to think that, and that is the effect that Trump is going to have on Africa. The decisions that he makes in America somehow affects Africa as well. And I want to tell something to all those Uber drivers that's been explaining to me about how great Trump is, and he's a godly man, and he's a Christian, although we know he's done all of these things, and he's a felon, and he's been convicted. And what he wants to do now with, didn't he say he wants to deport 3.1 million Nigerians and send them back to Nigeria? Some of these people were born in America, and he's saying that they must go back. Imagine telling a kid that doesn't know anything else, hey, you must go back to your parents' homeland. And if I send your parents, I don't want to separate the family, but I'll send you with. And just another thing I want to touch on, Sean, is the Republicans, and what I've seen of them is they will tell you a lot about they don't want billionaires being involved in the government. They had this big thing about George Soros being involved with the Democrats, but now you see Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, all at the inauguration and all bending the knee to him. So I don't understand how you can have one set of rules for the Democrats, but then it's okay for the Republicans. And those Republican voters will now tell you it's okay for them to have Elon Musk in their corner because it's all about business. So, yeah, I think when you have this, this thing where you have different rules, different strokes for different folks, it kind of makes no sense to me. And I don't know how any logical person can understand that, we're making a excuse for one person, but we use that same excuse to villainize someone else, or to vilify someone else. Sorry. So yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. But it always just baffles me, you know. But
Just
I
quickly,
wanted to
yeah.
ask you. I wanted
Before
to
you
ask you
ask me, I
something
wanted
else.
to. Before you ask
Yeah.
me this, I know what you may ask me about, but I just
Yeah.
want to quickly add two things that you talked about. One is this idea that Trump is Christian. We might disagree with people who say he's Christian and so on, but I think we also have to understand that there's a kind of a logic, meaning like the people who make that argument, it makes sense to them. And I'll say this quickly. There is a Christian theology that's very strong among kind of born again evangelicals and fundamentalists, which we know there's a lot of them in South Africa. Even in Cape Town, there's a lot of them. So there's this idea that you're imperfect, but that God can use you. And so Trump, who is doing all kinds of like horrible things, I will grab them by the pee. Who is?
He can never name a Bible verse when they ask him. He
can't
says,
name a Bible verse. He's super corrupt. But none of this. But David, I think we could say that like with indignation. Oh, like we can be like upset. Oh, but he doesn't even know a Bible verse. Well, he held the Bible upside down during the protest. But the thing is, according to that theology, if you're imperfect,
yes,
you're still a vessel, and you may not know it.
Yeah.
So Trump is doing God's work according to that kind of. We run into those people in Cape Town tons who sound and talk like this, because that's also how you like. I don't want to get into much into that, but you grow up in like the flats. A dude is like harassing people. He is like beating people up, being involved in the biggest violence you can think about. But at their funeral, the point is like, what did he do at the last minute? So it's like, did he come to God? So it's like, you're imperfect. And so Trump, this is my thing. I think we underestimate, and we're like, but why evangelical Christians voting for this guy? Well, because in that theology, meaning in that way of understanding how the world works and how to make sense of the world, it is fine that he's like that, because you know what? God can use him. That's how that kind of thinking works. So I'm not shocked when you say Nigerian or South African, somebody who lives in South Africa, regardless of where they're from, but like the local cab driver telling you, oh, I love Trump, he's so Christian. Well, because if it's all for Trump, it might be opportunistic. He's just doing the Christian thing because that's how he gets votes, or that's how he keeps enriching himself. That's how he keeps selling you gold coins.
He understands what people need in their lives now. He understands what fear mongering is. He understands telling people like there's too many foreigners in our country and they're going to take over. He knows how to play the game. He knows how to. He's a salesman basically, and he's selling you something that you want a year. So obviously you're going to go with it. But what was your second point?
My second point, which I want to ask you about, is like, so my other sense from here, and maybe you can answer this, is when you watch it from here, particularly perusing social media, because obviously I don't have any friend who makes those arguments, but it seems to me on social media, reels, the comments in reels, some comments on Facebook pages, even like strangers, because Facebook's terms change. So like strangers are commenting on my page.
Yeah.
You have people who love Trump in South Africa. They see somehow there's a fascination with Trump. Naturally, white South Africans like love Trump because it aligns a little bit with the DA, Freedom Front, explicitly the Vryheidsfront, Solidariteit types. I remember they went to Afroforum, came to the US to meet with Trump. Trump tweeted about the farm worker, the farmers being murdered, which we know is not factually correct. So there's that affinity. But then there's also people who are sort of tired, Black people, colored people, tired of like load shedding, corruption. So they don't like politicians who are democratically elected. Like they think they're just politicians who are in it to make money. This is in the US. And so they begin to align themselves with, they think a guy like Trump, who's a businessman, can change politics. How do you, do you have an explanation for why there are these fans of Trump that you encounter in South Africa? Apart from the Christian part.
I think that has a lot to do about the Christian part. I think that has a lot to do about whether people are gay, trans. It has a lot to do with people's personal beliefs. And I think they love the fact that he mentions that and he talks about that. And he said, and now came out recently and
Or
said
just
there's
to
only,
clarify, you said whether people are gay and trans because he
yeah,
sort
he
of
only said there's two genders. There's the man and
yeah,
the woman. So
he makes comments. Yeah, he makes all these
yeah, so
comments against.
he what I'm saying is he plays to a certain base, and that base has made its way over to South Africa. And whether you like it or not, we see some of the same feeds that you see in America. We also see either the conservative way on TikTok, and we want to follow that because it aligns with our views. And some people like the liberal way of thinking because it aligns with their views. You know, you can be center left, center right. Um, but I do believe in South Africa a lot. If you are a Christian, you would lean more to the conservative side. And I think because Trump is a representative of that conservative side now, you would go for Trump, and that is the problem that I have because that means you have some kind of blind faith. Just because he says he's for the conservatives or he's with the Republican Party and with conservatives and with the right, it now makes you feel like it's okay then for you to vote for him, but not understanding or looking at the man that he is. Because I always feel like the person who represents you must be aligned with your with your morals and your understanding. So I don't just think you can just blindly follow someone because he's Donald Trump and he's now the president and he was elected by Republicans. I don't know how many. I think it was 70 odd million, if I'm not wrong.
He got
Something that
what
voted
you
for him.
might call, it's not a clear majority, but he did get most of
Yeah,
the votes in the last
yeah.
election.
So if to answer your question, I think there's a straight alignment with the fact that he wants, and people feel that they some of their models or their belief in models have been lost, and they feel like he's the one to bring it back. So we saw what he did in 4 years in America from I think 2016 to 2020, and how he totally botched the COVID. Uh, uh, um, how we
Yeah,
work that out.
managing the COVID
You can
pandemic.
drink bleach, and you can do all of these things to help with COVID, and how he wants to nuke a tornado. Like this guy's way of thinking, I don't understand how people can listen to a person like this, but they will defend him and say maybe we should try it. Maybe we
But
should.
can I say two quick things? One is indirect response to you. One is why people, you say, like, I cannot understand why people like the guy, because people have lost their faith in traditional politics.
Yeah,
Meaning, like, politicians who look to them like they're professional politicians. That's their career. They get into office and then they just take care of themselves. Trump, the way he represents himself is like, I have my own money. We know that that's not true. I am, because it turns out he's been bankrupt a bunch of times. I'm self-made. Actually, no, your father was rich, but he tells a story about himself that works. If you're like living in oh, sorry, that's just New York. The
New
noise.
York police on the
New York ambulance. And this is a quiet residential neighborhood. This is normal.
Yeah.
But anyway, because you distrust regular politicians, you start thinking that people who can claim that they've been successful in something else that involves their own money, that they know better. So Berlusconi in Italy is an example of this. There was a guy in Argentina called Mauricio Macri. He owned Boca Juniors, that football club that Maradona played for. And then there's Donald Trump, which is like you're basically present yourself as like, I was successful with something else. Berlusconi, I ran AC Milan. We won the European Champions League. In fact, in a debate, he told his opponent, who was a professor and a guy who understood economics, what have you done? You haven't run anything. I won in football. So that's part of it. That's my first part. Then I just think another part, which I when you were speaking, I was like, this is something that people in South Africa don't know. A lot of the Christianity that people get in South Africa from the US is kind of what you described, conservative, Republican, that seems to go along with a sort of very conservative idea of gender. There's only a man and there's only a woman. There are no gay people, that kind of politics. That politics in the US, if you actually study that history, that's also linked to sort of a very racist like quite racist politics in the US, like Southern.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, all those like pastors that people are like watching and admiring in South Africa from Texas.
With their $1 million private jets.
Kenneth
Yeah.
Copeland, Swaggart. These people
Yeah.
are super right wing. So in fact, Trump is he was down with this thing called Liberty University, which is I think was the Billy Graham family. Super right wing, super corrupt, but like because people have a certain kind of religious politics, they align with them. But I also you were going to ask me about the sort of the foreign policy part, and I think there's something about like the World Cup and so on.
So I have a few friends, and we're probably planning to do the 2026 Soccer World Cup in America, Mexico, and Canada that they're hosting together. My question is, because I just watched a few things this morning. So he placed tariffs on Canada, on Mexico, and he did it to China. I just want to like pick your brain and find out how is this going to affect the World Cup, and would it have would it have an effect on the World Cup, and would FIFA then decide, look, because he said something like he wants to take over Greenland and take it away from Denmark. He wants to do something with the Panama Canal. He's spewing out all these things so that if he can't get it with negotiations, obviously there's going to have to be some fighting involved. So if America, for some reason, find themselves in a war, what is the implications for the World Cup in 2026?
So I'd answer it like in two ways. One, you have to understand the history of FIFA, and in the history of FIFA, there's the people organizing the World Cup. They have a history of, regardless of all kinds of terrible things that are happening with the host, they will still just have the World Cup. Argentina, 1978, is running a brutal dictatorship. Is actually detaining people under the stadium complex. Seriously, go read about this stuff. For those people who are like, what is he talking about? Qatar, first Russia in 2018, Qatar in 2022. Even if, with all the indications of sort of how authoritarian Russia had become with Qatar's labor practices, FIFA still, we're having the World Cup there. So I don't think, if you're thinking about the World Cup is organized by FIFA, I don't think they're going to care much about how this is going to play out. On the other hand, you're saying this is a World Cup that is being organized by three countries together. It's organized by, as you said, Mexico, the US, and Canada. Although Mexico, I think, get like 2 or 3 games, Canada gets another 3 or 2, and then the US gets the bulk of the games. So now you just put tariffs on all these countries, and then you're gonna like run the World Cup with them. I don't. So on that, I don't think that those tariffs are gonna last. Everything Trump does, he has to climb down like 2 or 3 days later. Now you say like, okay, he says he's going to take over Greenland, which I need to look that up again. But I think Denmark colonized Greenland. But that's beside the point for now. Yeah. Does that mean Greenland? Denmark is not going to participate in the World Cup if they qualify? They'll participate. Because
I'm just saying, Sean. I'm just saying there'll be some tensions. Especially with the way
you come to the World Cup. I think the real problem, and this is where you said you and your friends want to come to the World Cup. That's going to be the real issue.
Yeah,
visas. There's already an issue about teams bringing their players and getting like this is true story. As a professor, right? Students from the rest of the world, they want to come and study it. They need visas. If you're from a country outside of Western Europe, I would say outside Western Europe, sort of the old white world, Australasia, and your country does not have a visa-free or a visa agreement with the US, sometimes it takes you months to get an appointment to come and study here, right?
Yeah.
People who used to have it easy, I understand, getting those 10-year visas to come to the US, they're saying that that's taking longer. They're struggling to get visas. People are on waiting lists. People have to cancel trips. Imagine you getting that level of visa application at that time. Now, there is a thing in which countries act weird, and then the World Cup happens, and then they relax the visa stuff, and then people just Schengen in France or European Championships in the Netherlands, whatever. you can suddenly they relax those like crazy restrictions that they had when people have to come en masse to a tournament. So maybe that will change. But given people are sort of questioning as to whether the US are going to be making it really hard for people to come to the World Cup. But again, the World Cup's going to happen. The World Cup is being hosted by Saudi Arabia. It's been hosted by Russia. It was, as I said, hosted by Argentina when it was the dictatorship. Bro, it's going to happen regardless. Also, FIFA just opened an office in Miami. I don't know if people have noticed that. FIFA opened an office in Miami. Infantino came to Trump's inauguration. The World Cup will happen. It might be the people who need visas. You'll have to apply like long before the time. You may have to like book your ticket.
That is the thing. You have to make sure that you are okay, because you don't want to find out a week before the time or 2 weeks before the time. You know,
we have a story, but not in America, where you and I had to go to like a Liverpool match.
Yeah.
And up until the last minute, we weren't going to give all the details out. Yeah. But up until the last minute, we had, I think the day of you flying, you picked up the visa, or the day before?
The morning of my flight, I got my visa. That's also because I was late. I'm on Cape Town time, bro. I'm one of those chill people. You can tell me now to do something for you. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And then 2 minutes before the time, like, yo, how am I gonna get this done? I'm joking.
No, that ain't happening. That ain't happening.
I'm joking. That was bad, but that was a crazy time though. Yeah. Fortunately, it worked out. We got to go to Liverpool and watch the game. But yeah, I know we've been talking about the World Cup in America. I think another thing that I want people to just you know, when they look at us, what they need to know is that we are.
You had to do that.
We are big Liverpool supporters. From
that's a segue. It's quite a segue. World Cup, Liverpool.
But from my side, look, it was, I wouldn't say forced upon me, but I was guided in that direction from my dad. Watching the games and watching Ian Rush and John Barnes play, and later on it became a way for us to have good conversations while we're watching the game. Likewise, when we watch the Stormers or the Springboks. So it was amazing, and yeah, it was a great time. I didn't know we're gonna have to wait so long after they won the league titles back then. I think what it was, the 31 years or something. Until we won another league title, and we went the year afterwards. And then the game that we watched was between Liverpool and Spurs, and Liverpool was 1-0 behind. I think Son scored the goal, if I'm not wrong. And then I got messages from people from South Africa saying, yeah, I'm the bad omen, and that's why Liverpool is losing. I never should have gone. I should have stayed at home. What was my ass doing in England and Liverpool? I should have stayed. And then, thank the Lord, this player is one of the best in the world. He always plays with a smile. Luis Diaz came up with the equalizer. It was amazing. And yeah, I could say something.
It's a 1-1 draw. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I was for you. Well, how did you get into the Liverpool?
The thing with Liverpool is like it. Again, as you know me, I'm always going to tell you the bigger thing and then how it relates to me. Like when television, when they started, when the Premier League, what was known as the First Division, and English football in general became global, what they would do is they would send out like a highlight reel once a week.
Yeah.
As I understand it, the Liverpool was the team that people saw on TV.
Was that kind of like a game of the day type of thing?
Game of the week. I mean, it's funny. One of the first games I saw on South African TV, and those are, I don't know how old some of your friends are, but in 81, I think it was 82 FA Cup. Tottenham played in the FA Cup and they won this FA Cup. And I remember watching it, but for some reason, I did not really like gravitate towards Tottenham. Yeah. They had like Ricardo Villa, Glenn Hoddle, Ossie Ardiles. I think Ray Clemens, who had played for Liverpool, was now playing for them. But for some reason, I wasn't really like a fan of Tottenham Hotspur. And Dad, of course, was a Pa, so the grandkids would call him. How did we call him? Daddy. You have to spell that. Anyway, he was a big Liverpool. He was already a Liverpool fan. D-A-D-D-I-D-E. No, it's like D-A-D-D-I-E.
Yeah, Daddy.
It's like a different kind of thing. But anyways, I think he told me that he had always followed Liverpool scores like in the newspaper, because for a lot of older people, the previous generation, it was radio and reading scores in the Cape Times and Argus. And also, South Africa didn't have television until 1976. It did not show any of this football like until I would say the early 80s. That's why I'm saying 81. You're getting this FA Cups. You get this like this weekly highlight thing. You get match of the day. So British culture kind of came to us in the 80s. Liverpool was winning all these European Cups. That's like my thing, 83, 84, 85. So then Liverpool, of course, got kicked out because of the stadium disaster, which was not their doing. Yeah. But they got kicked out of European football along with other English clubs. And you're right that those great teams, Barnes, Russ, Aldridge, I actually briefly met Aldridge in Liverpool with our dad and with my son, Leo, who came along to watch this game with Atletico Madrid. So, that's how my thing started. And I think when you're like 14, 15, I'm watching my own kid now. He's like 15 and watching how he suddenly cares a lot about like the stats, the stuff, the sports. Mm. So it's like when I'm 14, 15 in like the mid 80s in Cape Town and in South Africa, that's when I really started caring about football. And Liverpool was incredible. John Barnes was like the face of it. And I think this is the other thing. We had local football.
Yeah.
This is the funny part that people don't often talk about. We had football.
Which is something, Sean, sorry to break your word. I think we should tap in on this in another show, because for me, and I have the same issue. Why are more South African supporters not going to South African soccer games? And why is there not that same love given by your parents or my father to me saying, oh, you must go support Cape Town Spurs or Hellenic at the time, or Santos? There wasn't that handover, but there was a handover from English Premiership or the English League to you should be a Liverpool supporter, or for some families, Manchester United or Everton, But it was never
my theory. I mean, we kind of, I think we were sort of trying to get out of here, but like, this is my quick take, and we can expand on this maybe in the next show. Yeah. This could be a topic on trying to understand, like, why is it that we follow the vagaries of the English Premier League, and then later on Serie A, La Liga, with so much like vigor, not for our local football. Yeah. So one, we're not unique. So I'll give 3 quick reasons, and we'll say more about other aspects of it next time. Yeah. One, we're not unique. In South America, when I first came to the US and I met lots of guys from like Central and South America, they live football through Spain and Italy. They've lived football through Spain and Italy since the 60s because their players started going there. Like, so it's often about connections. They also live in what you might call a Spanish-speaking world. So that's the other part. We live in an English-speaking world. England is the dominant cultural, in our newspapers, which, again, people are like, with race. Whites in South Africa, who dominated the newspapers, who set the agendas with news and sport, they kind of identified with England, and that's the stuff we read about. So, of course, even if we cared, we also start to identify with it. So we follow English football in that way. And I want to make my other 2 quick points. The other is local football was super divided. People don't understand how divided local football were. Then it was also about where in the country did you live. Cape Town, and again, I'm going to get myself in trouble with your friends again. Cape Town's identity is schizophrenic. It wants to be part of Africa, South Africa, Black South Africa. But at the same time, it militates, it fights with that. It doesn't want to be part of it. So I actually, as a kid, so when I said like, yes, I loved Liverpool, I actually also was obsessed with South African football, with Black South African football. I'm a Pirates fan from like the 80s. Shakes Mashaba, Kills, Jomo Sono. I remember those like Jomo Cosmos, the great Kaiser Chiefs teams of the 80s, when Mamelodi Sundowns by the late 80s started to. I've written about this stuff. So, and when I wrote about it, I viscerally remembered how great it was and how brilliant those footballers were. So for me, also I knew like Santos, of course Hellenic was around. I cared about Hellenic by the end of the 80s when teams started playing with Hellenic. Cape Town Spurs, who's the team Mark Williams played for that played it at Wynberg St. John, not Wynberg St. John, at William Herbert. What was it? Batchwood. So like we knew those teams, but to be honest, the fields they played on was patchy, dump, like full of like.
Bro, I just wanted to say now, it's maybe the stage that you're on. Are they setting the stage for you? Are you excited to go? Are you going to see beautiful soccer? No, you're going to see divots in the ground where I play under 17 soccer on the same field, and you seeing this guy that's a star. And yes, it boggles my mind. Like I can't understand it, But soccer was always treated in Cape Town as like a secondary sport to rugby. So rugby would have the better fields, cricket, but for football, I'm using soccer and football very loosely here, people, because some people say football, some people say soccer. So I'm saying both. It's just how I am. But yeah,
I have a couple other things to say this, but I don't want to because and also I think we should keep that other story about why Liverpool has parts of its stadium named.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing.
Let's keep that for another time. We keep the mystique about that, and people can go Google that. Yeah. But I think there's a lot. I think next program when we come back, we got to talk about this idea of like why is it that we love. We start with that maybe. It's like why we love our English football so much when we have our own brilliant footballers, Benny, Doctor, Shoes Masueo, Lucas Radebe. Actually, when
Williams,
Williams, when the part ended and we went back to, we were playing international football, playing for Leeds. Guys are playing for Bari. Phil Masinga went to Bari. You know what I'm saying? Like then we were like, hold up, look at us, right? Or people ended up in Cesar Matoung. I think he played in Tenerife in La Liga. So we have like histories and stories, but because we're so obsessed with this.
David Iñárritu
went, I think, to Spain too, or Portugal. Yeah. So great football for us. Anyway, because people would say we're cooking. So I think it might be a good place here to say, again, this was episode 2. My name is Sean Jacobs. This is my brother,
David Jacobs.
Yeah. This is episode 2 of We're Brothers. We're going to post this and we're going to look to your comments. I hope I did David justice. David's buddies are not going to hate me after today. Like, they'll find another thing to say about me, bro.
I hope they do. I always like the banter. I think the banter is good. If the banter is there, like I said, then it means people are watching. That's all we need. We just want to share with people a bit about ourselves and our lives. So if you do like what you see, like and subscribe. Give us some views. Share with some people as well that you would think would enjoy the topics, and hopefully we can share some more topics with you that you would want to hear from. So and one show, Sean, that I think we might just pick up again is American sports as well. I think there's a lot of interest in there.
Got the Super Bowl coming up. By the time we're recording this,
and we're doing a Super Bowl watch party. So yeah, it's going to be amazing. So that's great.
By the time we're back, the Super Bowl will be over. So this is our parting shot. Who are you going for the Super Bowl? This is it. This is the end.
I love Kansas City Chiefs. I'm Patrick Mahomes. So unfortunately, I would like another team to take it, not because I don't want them to do the three-peat. I'm actually on the fence on this one, and I gave you some personal reasons why on another group recently. But yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. They've got a running back that's extraordinary. What's his name? Saquon Barkley. So I think they can do wonders. If Saquon Barkley can get his running game on, I think Philadelphia Eagles can take this one. To be honest with you,
here's my quick thing.
The Chiefs, but I think the Eagles will take this one. I don't know how you feel.
Okay, my quick thing is I want the Eagles to win because of the East Coast. I live on the East Coast of the US. And also I have some friends, maybe one of them, Dan, will bring him on here. He actually he's American, but visited Cape Town. I took him to see my dad, my mom. So anyway, Dan might come on the program. Dan's from Philadelphia. So I want the Eagles to win. Mahomes is this kind of character that you're just fascinated about. Yeah. That he is just incredible. He does this weird stuff where he looks like he's being tackled and he's falling down, and then he like pitches the ball to Kelsey and they score.
But that's also because he's got this baseball thing where he played baseball just like his dad. Because he could have made. He's a dual sports player, right?
Yeah.
So in South Africa,
Here's the
we would have
reason
like
why I'm not. Here's why I'm not at
Mhm.
Mahomes thing. Mahomes, given what we've just been talking about this whole episode about Trump,
Yeah.
Mahomes'
Don't get me
mother's like
started,
a
bro.
big MAGA, Make America Great Again.
Yeah.
His wife, I think, retweeted Trump. When
His
Mahomes gets
mother
asked
wears the
about the
clothing.
stuff, when Mahomes gets asked
Yeah.
about the stuff, he gives these like half answers where he says nothing. So kind of what people might call half-assed answers. So he's this kind of empty vehicle, like people are just sort of projecting stuff onto him. And he was destined to be like brilliant. Jalen Hurts, if you like follow college, which I follow college football also, particularly college football from the American South, the SEC. Jalen Hurts played at Alabama when he came out of high school from Texas, and he would twice go to the finals, but he would fail at the finals. And then he had this terrible game in like they played a national championship for Alabama, and he failed in the game, and then the coach took him off at halftime. And Tua, I always say his last name wrong, Tua Gavala. He's from Hawaii, I think. Yeah, Valoa. He came back and he won the game for Alabama, and then that sort of for then the next season, Jalen had to sit on the sidelines and watch Tua win, but he stuck around, and then the season after that, he came back and played really well at Alabama, and then after he left Alabama, he went to play at Oklahoma, where he made like if you go on YouTube and stuff, and you could see some of these videos. He was incredible at Oklahoma, and then he got to the pros, and he's been really great at Philadelphia. So I kind of want a guy like that to win it's like a solid football player. I don't know what his politics are. I haven't heard him say anything dumb. So for now, I want Philadelphia, the Eagles fly, Eagles fly. I want Gilly. You know Gilly and Wallow? I don't know if people know these people in South Africa.
I'm not sure.
For Gilly and Wallow, Gilly is this like rapper from Philadelphia. I think he's probably in his 40s now, but he has these like videos where he wears an oversized hat and he's
I saw it.
dancing. He's dancing to like Too Short, who's from Oakland, Too Short song, on, and he's dancing with the hat and everything. For their sake, I want Philadelphia to win the trophy. Anyway, that's it for today.
Just I'm just gonna name drop one thing quickly. I saw Damien Dalende's father in the gym this afternoon, and I had my top on. He's like, "Oh my God, I'm a Liverpool supporter, and my kids are as well." So I asked him, "Damien?" He said, "Yeah, Damien as well." But he did this thing where he said, "I never forced him to, but they all Liverpool supporters." I'm like, "Okay, I believe you. That's fine."
Well,
on that note,
with Damien Dalende's father, if he's listening, he's from Goodwood, probably. Where's Damien Dalende from?
He is from Milnerton.
Oh, so that's not a good.
No, we won't claim him. That's a bit too far.
Okay, anyway, enjoy the week, David. Enjoy the week. I see you after the Super Bowl. Excellent work. Great
Cheers,
stuff.
man. I'll see you, brother. Be cool. Cheers. Bye.